Okay, I think we can start the session. So welcome to this session on human-centered CCAM, how we can navigate the user needs and policy goals to design CCAM for people and with the people. And so for those who just came from the other session and are ready now for a full afternoon on societal aspects, I think this is the right place because it will be somehow a continuity. I think there we have been speaking about how CCAM can be used to achieve societal goals, and here actually it's a bit more the other way around, is how do we identify the goals and the needs and see how actually CCAM can address that. So as you know, the successful deployment of CCAM strongly depends on the benefits it will generate with the wider stake and also the diverse stakeholder groups and users, but also on the acceptance of the citizens. And they can have very diverse needs. So I think the challenge here is really to find the right methodologies to identify these needs. Also aspects of communications, how do we communicate to the different groups? And as well, how can we use then, once we have assessed these needs and these requirements, how can we use this in the design and also the policy making? So these are, and to discuss that, I will have with me here an esteemed panel of experts that are representing 4 different EU projects, EU-funded projects from the CCAM partnership, and one association as well, very important association in this domain. So the project are CONDUCTOR, AI for CCAM, CCAM-ERAS, Diversify-CCAM, and then the association is PAVE with Guido here. So I will introduce all the speakers once they will come to the stage. For me, this is not really a classical user or societal aspects session, because what I like about the projects also here is that they are not, the primary focus is not social aspects. I think you are dealing with, for example, AI, traffic management, workforce impact is definitely an aspect, and that's why it's interesting to see how these projects actually that are more of focusing on solutions or technical services actually take into account the societal needs. And for the presentations, we will follow a storyline. So we will start with presentations actually more focusing on the user aspects. With CONDUCTOR, then we will go with AI for CCAM more to the citizens, so the broader public, general public. And then we will go into actually the concerns, so workforce aspects. And then with PAVE, we will end as well on the aspects on diverse views and as well how we can educate the public, how we can create trust. So with that short introduction, I think I would not like to delay the presentation. So we will have the presentation in a row to have this really storyline that I just mentioned. And then we will open up for the questions and answers and for the discussions. So I would like to start first with the first presentations by Paola Lanzi, who is a human factors expert and serves as the head of automated and multimodal transport business unit at Deep Blue, and who will speak about some insights for the CONDUCTOR projects and methodologies.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. As I anticipated, I will bring you the experience that we did in the CONDUCTOR project. Oh, okay, it works. Okay, no. Okay, it works. In this slide, I tried to summarize a lot of information about the CONDUCTOR project. I have no time and no intention to explain the project right now, but this slide is here just to say that CONDUCTOR is about fleet management. And if you want to know more about this project, there is a stand in the room downstairs, no, in the room here, where you can find all the information. So feel free to go there. You will find my colleagues, and they will provide you all the information about the project. At the very beginning of this project, we had this question, how to design a CCAM-based service. So in this project, the focus was not to design a CCAM solution, but was more to design a service of fleet management based on CCAM, which is quite different, I would say. And in order to address this question, of course, we came to the same conclusion that Stefano used to introduce this panel today. First of all, we consider that the successful deployment of these CCAM-based services depends, first of all, on the value of the service. And this value depends, in turn, on the stakeholders, on the users. In this project, we didn't consider the citizens, but because, for the particular nature of the solutions that we were addressing. But what was important to consider is that these stakeholders and users are different. They come from different organizations that have different nature, different purposes, so they have different interests, different needs, and also different level of acceptance of the service. And to complicate even more the situation, of course, this interest, needs, level of acceptance can be different from one user, stakeholder, and another one, but we cannot say that they remain stable in time. There is also the possibility that they change. So these are all aspects that we have to take into consideration while we design a CCAM-based solution. So the first challenge of our project was to try and identify all this variety of needs and priorities of the stakeholders and take them into account in the design, development, validation process of our project. And to do this work of identification of the stakeholders and user needs, we use this methodology that, let's say, we created in the project, but creation is a too ambitious word. So we simply write down this methodology and applied it in the project. We called it double funnel methodology, and the purpose is to integrate the stakeholders and user needs into the design of the CCAM-based solution and services. So all the design process starts from these needs. And the process of collection of needs or elicitation of needs, as we human factors like to say, follow a two-directional process. On one side, we have a top-down approach that we use to capture the let's say, the requirements from regulatory bodies, public authorities. So this is something that is derived from the policies. And from the other side, from the bottom, instead, with this approach, we try to collect the detailed, specific needs and requirements of the stakeholders that are involved in the use cases. And then there is a moment of synthesis in which we put these top-down and bottom-up results together, and we derive the requirements that we used in the project. In the top-down approach, what we did is, first of all, to recreate a framework of CCAM. So we made an extensive analysis. It was done 2 years ago. So if you go and look for the document, maybe you can find something has been updated in the meantime, but at the moment it was state-of-the-art research. So we analyzed all the public policy for mobility in order to contextualize this CCAM innovation in the broader scenario. We then derived a number of, let's say, regulatory principles that in the broader perspective can be considered common for the domain, and some specific requirements that can be associated to the principles that we identified. And in this picture, you see very quickly a simple representation of the regulatory principles and of the associated requirements that we took into account in the project. I go fast because I have not a lot of time, but if you want more information on that picture, come to me later on, of course. The bottom-up approach instead. If with the top-down approach, we started from a broad picture, a European picture. In the bottom-up approach, we started from the use cases that we were considering in the project. We made an extensive analysis of the use cases and of the technologies that were behind the use cases, but also the way these solutions were expected to be used in that specific local context. And we then identified the users and the stakeholders involved. And I have to say that for this identification, the structure of the CCAM partnership was quite useful. Because it was a way of having a kind of checklist and make sure that we are covering all the relevant stakeholders. Some of them, I would say, are not that evident. So the CCAM partnership, the composition of the CCAM partnership was very useful. And then after identifying these stakeholders and users, we collect direct information from all of them about their needs and their requirements in the specific use cases that we were taking into account. This was extremely helpful because it helped us giving a more detailed view of the use cases. So we started with Gregor, the technical coordinator of the project. Please forgive me for what I'm going to say, but we started from a technological driven view of the solutions in the project. Do you agree? And then, thanks to this work, was a way of taking into account the needs of the users, the stakeholders, and we also changed the original description of the use cases, expanded a lot the view of the use cases. We took into account a number of aspects, also of the interaction with the systems, with the service, and of the service with other services that at the beginning were not taken into account. So this was very important to better define the concepts, but also, and hope it works. It works? Does it work? Okay, it works. So yes, here I have just a few slides to show you that we collected different stakeholders, users for the different use cases, and that they have different compositions, because this, of course, reflected the local nature of the different use cases. And with different means, surveys, workshops, focus group, but also direct interview, we collected information from these, all these subjects. Okay, apparently it's moving faster there than here, sorry. So just to say that we collected all their, not only what it is defined as need, but also the challenges that they identify for the integration of these services and the gaps that they see in the current environment, in the current infrastructure, for instance, or in the current cultural environment. All of this information and these diagrams are here just to give you a flavor of the kind of data that we collected, were used to create the synthesis of this double funnel methodology. So we put together the requirements that we got from the top-down approach with these requirements that we derived from the users and the stakeholders. And in this picture here, you can see that we tried to see how the needs that we collected from the users reflect the needs that we collected from the top-down approach, so from the policies. And in some cases, what we saw is that there is a good alignment between the two. In other cases, was more difficult. But another aspect that emerged from this study is that in many cases, the users, the stakeholders that were involved in the project were not aware of the broader picture. And when they had to figure out, to consider how they inserted into the broader picture, they also sometimes changed their needs, their requirements. So they understood the value also what they were doing. It is interesting to see that the majority, that in general, the requirement from the top-down approach that was considered more relevant by the stakeholders is related to environment. This was something surprising for us. But we also decided to split this analysis to see how it was, sorry, I have problems with this. It's evident. So it is also evident what I told you at the beginning. Different stakeholders have different priorities. So for some of them, safety was the first one, for other ones, environment for the first one in aggregation. And from all this work, so we derived a set of, let's say, operational requirements. So requirements on how these solutions shall work in the specific domain. This work that was done, as I told you, with the involvement of a lot of users and stakeholders can now be considered, as a work of co-design of the service that we did with all these people. But most important, this did not remain in the project just as a deliverable written at the beginning of the project, as often happens. The consortium was open enough to consider this work as the foundation of the project. And so the requirements were also, the requirements defined at technical level were described in a way to be coherent with this work. So we can say that this was somehow an activity of co-development, because we were able to consider the point of view of users, stakeholders, not only at the beginning of the process, but to use this point of view as a reference during the project while we were developing the solutions and the concept of the service. Then there was a phase of a co-assessment in which we organized validation sessions. And this is a terminology that I know is used in different ways in different domains. This was not a technical validation. It was a technical and operational validation. So it is something that we did to see if the solution worked in the specific environment and if we were able to achieve the results that we expected. We formulated a validation plan in which the validation objectives were associated to the needs that we identified at the beginning. So this validation approach was intended to check if the needs were met and if the results achieved produced the impact that we expected. Now we are almost closing the process. So we are in the fourth phase of this process in which we are closing the loop. So in which we are actually taking all the results of the validation of the different use cases, put them all together, check, see if they provide a solid, robust view at the project level. And then the next step, the step that is ongoing, not finalized yet, is to check how this reflects the needs. And we don't exclude that we will discover that some of the needs will be met. Some of them maybe will not. Even if we made everything to meet the needs, could happen that we discover that some of them have not met. We can also discover that in the meantime, they changed. So that's the reason why this process is not finished. So it's a continuous iterative process in our view. This is the last slide. I finished. So to conclude, what we learned from this project and from this methodology. First of all, that introducing the CCAM solution is not just a matter of addressing a technical or technological challenges. I heard this sentence many times today and yesterday, and this is a confirmation. So we have to take into account in the overall innovation process, we have to take into account all the beneficiaries of the services. So there are passengers, drivers, operators, but also the communities and territories that, as I said, were not considering this project for specific reasons, but could be integrated into this methodology in other projects. And these two dimensions are interdependent, complementary, and they provide a way for producing a wide set of, at the end, integrated set of requirements. Of course, for being able to use this result, we need a proactive and holistic approach to the design of these services. What's the meaning? Holistic, we take into account multiple perspectives, multiple also KPIs that can be affected. Proactive, many of these aspects have to be addressed early in advance in the design process, not when we reach TRL 6, TRL 7. Some of them shall be considered quite earlier before. And a methodology like the double funnel methodology that we proposed could have the benefit of helping, mapping, addressing the context-specific needs and requirements onto the broader principle and standards. I finished. And that's it. So to give really a design of the service into the context. And with this, I have finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paola. Indeed, I like the terminology of this double funnel methodology. I think it's quite explicit about what it means to do. I think it's probably challenging indeed to have it meet in the middle and aligned. But I think you made a perfect transition as well to the next presentation, as you highlighted that it doesn't affect only the direct beneficiary, the passengers or the users, so but actually the wider citizens. So for our next presentation, I would like to invite to the floor Nina Deona, who is Insights Manager at BVA Insights. She's a specialist in international market research with expertise in technology and acceptance models, methodologies, and you will present the insights from the AI for CCAM project.
So thank you, Stefan. Let's go directly. Yes, so I am Nina. I work, as Stefan said, at the BVA family, and we are part of the consortium for the AI for CCAM project. So the AI for CCAM project, I'm not going to go into much detail, but really sticking to my part in this project because it's quite technical also. So as part of this project, we are working toward a trustworthy AI. So it means that an AI that would be fair, that would be reliable, that would be transparent, that would ensure diversity. And as such, we are working on 7 key requirements that are put forward by the European Commission. And today I'm mostly going to talk about diversity and societal well-being. So, it's not working. Yes. So our role at BVA as part of the AI for CCAM project is to cover the adoption of AI that would be applied to mobility and really to think about its ethical implications. So as such, what we did was to have an iterative research protocol. So we had different steps. The first steps was qualitative research on levers and barriers to adoption that I'm going to talk briefly about in a few seconds. Second step was to produce guidelines about ethical, social requirements, fairness and diversity. And based on these first 2 steps, we also carried out a quantitative study last year that would talk about the levers and barriers that will best improve diversity and inclusion. And this is the study that I'm going to talk about most today. But before going to the quantitative study, I would give you an insight that we got from our qualitative study. In this qualitative study, what we found was that people who would tend to be in a mechanical, technological comparison universe, so people that would use words such as machines, such as system, artificial robotism to describe the technology, and that would compare it to already existing automated transport, would tend to favor more the adoption of AVs. Whereas, on the contrary, we had other people that were more in what we call an intellectual and emotional comparison universe. So people talking about intelligence, autonomous, self-driven, self-driving, comparing this technology to human driving. And as such, when you compare it to human driving, you have a strong need for the trust in the person in charge. And those people would tend to be less favorable to the adoption of automated cars. So as such, wording has a strong influence on framing people's perception and really anchoring them in a comparison universe. So based on this first insight that we got from our qualitative study, we decided to go further in the quantitative study. And the first objective of this quantitative study was to test the influence of vocabulary, but also messenger and communication styles on attitude, trust, and adoption. So for that, we had two scenarios. First scenario was, as a citizen, you would be exposed to a communication campaign, testing two messengers, so the European Commission or a car manufacturer, and with different vocabulary, technical or emotional. And the second scenario was you, as a citizen, you were involved in an incident. And because you were in an incident, you would be given an incident report, and we would test people's reaction to this reporting. And the second objective, so as I said, we want to work on ethical requirements. So for us, it was really important to measure and quantify the perception of different categories of the European population to meet the diversity goal. And for that, we went nationally representative for our sample, and we went into 6 different countries that you just see here for our study. So the first learning we had from this quantitative study was that for citizens, there are still concerns about the use of automated vehicles. And basically what you see here is that there are topics from our topic modeling analysis. So we had safety and social impact as topic from the answers of our respondents. And basically, the more people would mention this topic in the survey, in their answer, the more their attitude would be negative. So as such, we have we identified these two topics as concerns for the citizen. And also what we found out is that when we asked respondents if they would be willing to travel in automated vehicle, what we found out was that the people that tend to say yes would be people, would be male, would be younger people, people living in cities, people with higher revenue, higher education, and those were the people that would tend to say yes against, of course, people who were more reluctant. So the people that would be more reluctant would be, of course, women, people living in rural area, older people, and also people with lower education, lower revenue. So what we found out was that the intention to adopt highly depends on this social aspects, age, revenue, education, and main transportation mode. So based on these first learnings, first recommendation that we could give for policymaker manufacturers is to address these concerns of this type of groups that are still reluctant to the technology, and to do this with inclusive measure. And how we can do that, it's really to give back power to citizens, to really have citizen empowerment. So to have people in training session, in decision-making process, to have them in public debate, and In behavioral science, we have what we call the IKEA effect. So it's a concept in behavioral science that says that you place more value on things that you have built yourself or created yourself. And this is a form of citizen empowerment because, for example, in the AFO-CCAM project, what we do is that we have a participatory space. So we let people come to this participatory space and they can give their opinion, they can share what they want about the technology. And we have other initiatives. For example, in Montpellier, there was a citizen convention on AI, so not just related to mobility, but AI in general. And during this convention in Montpellier, there was different citizens coming together, debating around the use of AI and participating to public debate. So this is just example of how we can empower citizens when it comes to this type of technology. More learnings on the quantitative study. What you can see here on the slides is negative attitudes. And what we found out when we talk about negative attitudes is that when people got exposed to a messenger that would be a manufacturer, and when they got exposed to technical vocabulary, they would tend to be less negative. So as such, being exposed to this kind of message seemed to leverage negative reactions. Sorry. Yes, and what we found also was that the more people would mention convenience, the more they would mention communication as well in their answer, the more their attitude would be positive. So as such, convenience was a strong lever of positive attitudes. And based on these two learnings, what we our second recommendation would be really to foster, to communicate around the benefit of using AI. So it means that we need to let citizens envision themselves using this technology. And we would also suggest that we use more a technical wording rather than an emotional one. And last recommendation, so the learning we had also from our second scenario is that in a context of highly emotional incident, there is a strong need for reassurance. And as such, in our second scenario, people were given a reporting after being involved in an incident. And when they mentioned reporting in their answer, what we saw was that despite having a lot of negative reaction, when they mentioned reporting, their attitude would tend to be more positive. And as well, they were mentioning vehicle characteristics. So those were two main topics that would tend to help fostering more positive attitude in a negative situation. So as such, our recommendation is to really that in this type of situation, the communication should have the primary goal of reassuring citizens and to be really proactive and transparent when we talk about this type of situation. So that was my contribution for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. So I think for this, you brought up some already very interesting results on perception and mentioned something that I think is very important is the wording and the communication aspects. I mean, that's really essential. So now we go into the wider human-centered perspectives and maybe some first concerns already with the presentation from Arnaud Burgess, who is IRNI Manager, Transport and Mobility at Pantea, and he's the coordinator of the CCAM-ERAS project. So he will tell us more about CCAM-ERAS. Welcome.
Thank you, Stefan. It's my first time here at EUCAD, and I'm quite... I'm a trained economist, and I learn quite a lot about technology these days. But our project is about human-centered perspectives in the CCAM, and I will show you some insights from the CCAM-ERAS. Oops. Yep, CCAM-ERAS. Well, we always look for a nice acronym. Well, you see as it stands there, I even can't tell you by heart now what it actually is, but it is connected, cooperative, automated mobility, employment realization through the acquisition of skills. So that is CCAM-ERAS. But while addressing the consortium, I sometimes refer them to as CCAM erasers. That means that we erase the fear for CCAM. Also, it has a deeper meaning, CCAM-ERAS, so it is focused on the CCAM. So that is, by accidentally, when we chose an acronym, it shows like this, but you always have to find something nice. What we do in the project is addressing the skills, employment, and societal readiness. As stated by Stefan, I'm the coordinator of the project, but I have many supporters here. Ragnhild and Luna are there, and Guido is there, and Nicola. So also we have a nice stand together with the sister project, Reskilling, which is on the same topic. But if there is a difference you can make between CCAM-ERAS and the Reskilling project is that we are more looking at from a macro perspective, going top down, looking at the European job market, and Reskilling is more approaching it from bottom up. And we during the project, Reskilling started a bit later, we decided to team up. And also we have a joint stand, but also a joint approach to stakeholders. So that will help us in addressing. We are not individually fishing in the same pond, but we do it concert in coordination. Oops. Yep, it is a Horizon project. As stated, it's focusing on societal, labor market, and skills impact. It has 13 partners from industry and academia, and as stated, is linked to the Reskilling Sister project. What I should mention also, and what is maybe not at the forefront of today's presentation, is that we also have an innovation radar, which is developed by Ruprecht, and the innovation radar is scanning the literature and the ongoings on the web on new technologies designed in CCAM. It was initially used by us to fill in the use cases, because you know technology is going quite fast in the in this area, but we maintain this instrument in order to gain our insight in the progress on CCAM. So we also monitor the technology readiness level. Oops, next slide. Yep. So it is about so what is the why do social matters? Why do social aspects matter? Well, CCAM is a combination of social and technology change. So people are fear of risk of job loss or a mismatch between different job types. So there's also the need of public trust there and the inclusion of the different aspects. So it is about the question, can we ensure that these changes are inclusive? Who benefits and who risks to be left behind? And our research shows a strong potential for inequality. And if we do not proactively address the societal side of innovation, workers can worry about the job quality, and not only the quality, but also the quantity. So, and citizens express the concern about safety and data privacy and accessibility. So there's the trust of automation that hinges on whether people feel empowered and are not displaced by these changes. So what is our methodological approach? So we have stakeholder interviews. We approach the different stakeholders. So we have this, Guido is responsible for the stakeholder database analysis, and we extend that. So that is one part. We have the macro modeling, that is the European model of the job changes, and we have the diverse use cases. And in the end, we will have a skills foresight and survey, and the skills foresight is important. We do not develop a curriculum, but we say what are the boundary conditions for the new skills to be developed. So, for example, how does it affect the mechanic sector, the automobile industry? So that sort of thing. Oops. Yeah, well, just an example of the E3ME. It can handle with the different aspects that we are encountered with. So it is about the productivity change, but also about the change in demand and the change in the structure of the economy. So that is how we actually will include this. So that is the E3ME. What are the human-centered use cases? So they're on public transport, they are on shared mobility, on port logistics, and last mile delivery, depot automation, and private automated fleets. So we chose the use cases to encompass a broad range so that we can have a good response in our modeling. So these are the use cases. At the proposal stage, we had 4, but based on the innovation radar, we choose 2 more, which are quite advanced at the moment. Oops. The labor economic and the labor market impact modeling is based on the E3ME model. And we see the labor shifts and new roles coming up in the economy, and that will have an effect on the wage and the productivity effects and the cross-sector implications. So one sector delivers to the other, and that will have an implication in the economy. So for the European-wide economy, we will evaluate the job changes and the productivity changes, and also the wage changes. So what are societal barriers? What we have found now so far from the interviews, that the barriers are the trust and the jobs and the safety. People and workers have to find trust in the new setup of the jobs, and also their safety related to that. The enablers, how could you include and how could you include them in the design, that is in the co-design, and make it visible for the stakeholders. So here we give a conclusion is that that there is an inclusive governance needed in order to progress. So we have a QR code which we invite you to. Then you can participate in a survey that we do, the survey that we also held with the wider audience, and that where we approach stakeholders. So, and indeed, there is the training gaps that exists. So, people need to be trained in order to overcome these gaps. And especially there's the need for soft and digital skills within the workforce in order to keep them aligned. So you can join us by pointing out to that to the QR code. And the recommendation for us from our project is that as we are a little bit about halfway in the project, is that engage stakeholders early, design social KPIs, and the policy is designed to reskilling and develop equity in the workforce, notably. Oops. I think that is it. That is you join us at the stand, and we explain you further in the project. But this was a little bit about 9 months after starting the project. We will end in one more 15 months, and then we will have the conclusions ready by then. So, but these were some initial conclusions that I gave. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnaud, for this insight and learnings from the CCAM-ERAS project. And you already touched upon indeed some concerns like trust, jobs and skills, safety. So our next and last speaker is Guido Di Pasquale, who is Managing Director at PAVE Europe, where he leads the association in the mission of educating citizens and public authorities. And he will also speak about his activities in the Diversify-CCAM project. So that's also because we need to bring in also the diverse opinions and the diversity in terms of culture and regional differences. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. I would like to ask you a favor. So forget for a moment that you are so expert in CCAM and think about your closest friends and family and raise your hand if you think that they know anything about autonomous vehicles. Not you, your friends and your families. Not so many. It's because this is the main challenge. When we are between us, we know a lot about this technology and the development, and we know the challenges and the concerns, but also the opportunities that we want to explain to the large public. But most of the people today don't know almost anything about this technology. Maybe they have seen some videos from US and now also from China. And I found this interesting quote that is maybe also valid for marketing specialists that says that based on who they are and what they want and what they know, everyone is right every time. So we need to consider with much care about what people know and what they think about any type of technology, any type of new introduction, and in our case about autonomous and CCAM technologies. Just to give you a few examples, it was already mentioned by previous speakers, there are several studies in Europe and outside Europe showing that it's not so obvious that people accept or understand autonomous vehicles. For example, there is an interesting study conducted by JRC here, with many focus groups in many different European countries, interviewing people of different ages, women, elderly people, students. And the result of these interviews and focus groups was that there is a lack of trust and confidence on autonomous vehicles. And they would feel more comfortable if there is a human behind somehow. So if they know that there is a human behind. Another study conducted a couple of years ago by Lloyd Register Foundation in UK worldwide, so they surveyed the global, the world, and the result here again is the 65% of people would not trust or would not feel safe in self-driving cars. But not only, there is also a misunderstanding of it. Another study conducted by Toucham Research is showing that majority of people in UK think that they can buy today a fully autonomous vehicle. So what we used to call level 5, just to give you an example. Our colleagues in US, PAVE United States, conducted a study and survey with thousands of people together with J.D. Power. And they discovered that the majority of people, again, would perceive more disadvantages with ADAS. In this case, we are talking about ADAS, not fully autonomous functions. But if the same people add in their vehicles functionalities, features like lane keeping or parking assistant, they would be more confident or would trust or would be more open to accept new features in their vehicles. So that's what the studies and the surveys say worldwide. So from my point of view, what we need, and then we can talk about methodologies and how to address the concerns from people and how to, let's say, pave the way for user acceptance. We need education or information, so we need to convey the right information and neutral information to our target groups that can be different target groups. We need engagement, so we need to bring the stakeholders and the users in the dialogue, in our discussion, and not just provide the solutions to them and wait that they accept it. And then experience. We talk always about this, that people should experience the vehicles, because if they don't experience, it's difficult for them to understand and to trust the technology. So at the end, I discovered that this could be also framed in the 3E. Education, engagement, and experience. Another interesting study conducted by one of our members, CORE, which is a reinsurance company, always in line with this education, information, and experience. They were suggesting that information is key, but also who is conveying this information. So who is the messenger? I think you touched this a bit. So it is important that we identify the right organization, person that is conveying the message, that is trustable entity, but also how it is, the message is framed. So do we want to talk about the positive aspects, or do we want to talk about what happens if we don't deploy autonomous vehicles, if we don't replace human-driven vehicles with autonomous vehicles? And then we need to differentiate the messages. Messages for different audiences are different. So we need to talk the language, speak the language of the different communities and the different target audience. And his experience is, of course, key, because it's apparently very hard for people to change their behavior and to change their status quo. So it's very hard for people to change the way they live. So the way to change this is the experience, and the gradual and step-by-step experience of the new technology would help in this sense. We love QR codes, and I would like to ask you here, this time as professionals, to help us with this. We are conducting, again here, a survey. We are interviewing the participants of EUCAD. We also have a stand at the demo area to collect your views and your opinions or your inputs in general on how we should educate the different audiences. So what would be your proposals or suggestions for methodologies and approaches for informing and engaging and educating the different audiences? So it's very easy. It takes 2-3 minutes while I'm talking. Of course, I would prefer if you listen to me, but if you can take your time to reply to this survey, and if we have time at the end of the panel, we will also have a look at the results. So with all these concerns and all these challenges that we have, our organization, PAVE Europe, Partners for Automated Vehicle Education, was created with the desire to drive human adoption of autonomous technology. So a coalition, a non-profit coalition, a group of stakeholders, industries, groups, various groups, taking part of our community with the purpose of educate the general public and policy and decision makers on the potential benefit of this technology. And what we do, as I said, is to educate, but also unify the voices, because only if we collaborate, this word is mentioned many times, collaboration among stakeholders, but here we try to concretize this word, so to bring together the different stakeholders to convey and work together in messages that should be conveyed to the different communities and target groups, and also, of course, serve as a reference voice once we bring together all the stakeholders. So then what some inputs for the discussion and for our panel. What's the road to public acceptance? Public education is a challenge. It's not enough to share the knowledge. It's very important that we do an effective communication, that we communicate, as I said, in the proper way to the right target groups. Information is important, as I said, but also direct experience and positive experience. So it was found also in this survey and study from our colleagues in the US that when you talk with people that have experienced the technology and talk about it in a positive way, this has a sort of positive effect in trust. And the joint effort is very important, and I hope this is why we are all here today, because it's not only about technology, but it's about communicating about technology. And one of the projects that Stefan mentioned that I would like to represent and mention today is Diversify-CCAM, which is a European-funded project that together with CCAM-ERAS, where we are also part, is addressing the societal aspects. And I believe this is very important because this project is tackling the diversity, the diverse aspects that we need to consider when developing or planning for autonomous mobility, which is the cultural differences, especially in Europe, the geographical differences in Europe, and the policy differences, again, especially in Europe. And the project is providing tools and methodologies to address all these differences. So how we can make sure that we understand the needs of the different groups according to where they are based or according to their cultural, let's say, approaches and according to the local context. And this is done in several cities in Europe because Europe is so diverse from the north to the south. We need to conduct these studies and we need to approach citizens in different regions and even in the same countries in different cities. So that's why all these cities that you see here and the countries that you see here are involved in the project. And the way the project is organized without entering into the detail is to engage with the local community. So all the cities that we have in the project have local stakeholders that are engaging, especially represented by local authorities, that are engaging with the local communities, with the citizens. And through the help of the local authorities, we can reach out the citizens within the project. And as you can see here, it is a model that is used in the project to address all the different factors that may influence the development of CCAM. And it's not only about geographical factors and cultural factors and policy factors, but there are other factors that we need to consider, like infrastructure, like the societal aspects and the business factors. All of them are different when you want to consider the design and development of autonomous vehicles in Europe. And with this, I close. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Guido, including with the diversity. It opens up for good discussions. So as we are slightly behind schedule, I think, and also to leave you a bit more time to answer to the questions of the survey. As Guido said, we won't systematically now show you the results, maybe at the end of the panel discussions, but because we want this to be really an interactive event, so I think the idea is to open up to questions from you first. So I would like to, I think you are the experts here in this area. So please, if you have any question for our panelists, yes, please, just start.
Should I use the microphone?
I think, do we have a microphone? Or I think there are some in the seats, but I'm not sure if they are, apparently, I see.
Yeah, I'll speak out loud.
Okay, we can hear you.
Institute of Technology. Okay.
Yeah, they are in every.
Thank you. Jens Schippel from Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. I have a question to Guido. You introduced your presentation with these surveys, one of them indicating that 65% of the global population, I think, do not trust AVs or do not feel comfortable in AVs. And I wonder to what extent this is actually a problem. How much do you think this number has to come down? Considering that any innovation, of course, has opponents, particularly in the field of mobility. We had the problem with cars, trains, planes. And in any field, when it comes to new technologies, we have early adopters, we have early majorities, and so on. And we have late majorities, we have laggards. We have even today people who refuse to use mobile phones. So what do you think? Should we halve it? Or I don't think that we have to bring it down to zero, but would you think 30% is still problematic? Or is it, do I put it too simple?
Yeah, these are studies that we need to have an understanding also of the perception of the people. I think that the majority of these people that were part of the interviews had not experienced any of these technologies. So we are talking about perception. You ask a person, there is a robot that is driving you or your children at school, would you trust it? Maybe this was the first reaction, saying, well, I have to see it. I haven't. So the answer was no, I wouldn't trust it because it's a robot bringing my children at school. Well, this is something that, our job here is it's not really to reach acceptance or to decrease that number, but it's to clarify. So it's to inform in a transparent way. So it's to make sure that the people understand it. So, and hopefully they can start trusting the technology. But the first step and the first mission that we have at least is to let them understand, trying the technology if it's possible. If it is not possible, showing, I don't know, videos or comparing with other type of technologies, as you said, that were somehow adopted easily. But first step is to talk about it, to communicate in the right way, the technology.
I agree. I think communication and experience is what helps really to gain this trust. I don't know if somebody else wants to reflect on that or much.
Yeah, well, during our interviews that we did in the sector with, for example, the change in jobs for mechanics, is that you require a quite different skill set in order to address these new mechanical attributes in cars. And what we found is that people were not against these type of innovations. Actually, you need a higher education level in order to address these type of things. So people will welcome it, and it means an increase in the, let's say, the educational level. But and it requires also a different mindset in solving problems with these type of cars. It's not the greasy one in your overall that touches bolts and nuts, but it's more about the electronics. But people, what we found is that there's a type of workers that is welcoming this innovation. So that's from our perspective.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I have one question, and I think there's a problem in the way that we talk about the perceptions of AVs. We talk about it as a technology, and it's really an ecosystem of technologies with very different purposes. So for me, at least, it doesn't really make sense to ask about acceptance without referring to for what purpose In what context will the technology be used? By whom? Will it be technology that can reinforce car dependency? Will it threaten public transport? Will it be a service for whom? So I think you need to embed this discussion much broader than we tend to do today.
Indeed, it's about therefore understanding the needs and these co-design actually with the people, not to make them accept it. I agree, but yeah, if somebody.
I fully agree with that. So we are not talking about the technology. We are talking about how this technology can improve the society. So this is also the message that should pass. So it's not there is a new vehicle that is simply replacing the old way, so the human-driven vehicles, but there is something new that can really change as the smartphone came and now you have so many functionalities in your smartphone, and phoning is just one of them. But this narrative, yeah, it should be part of our discussion. I fully agree with that.
I also agree with you. I think it's evident from what I told. Actually, I think that improving the cooperation with users, stakeholders, citizens can help us going exactly in this direction. Because the first answer we get, as Guido said, is depends. Would you trust it? Depends. Depends on what? Depends on how I shall use it, on what I shall do with this technology, on how it works, many factors. And when you explore the use of a CCAM-based service in this perspective, with all the stakeholders, users, citizens, and you do exactly this. You investigate much better what I call the overall operational concept of the service, and how it is going to be inserted into the context, because we must not forget that the context is part of the ecosystem, and the same technology with the same concept put in different environments, it's a different thing. So I fully agree with you.
I think there was first question here. But you wrote it.
No, it's it's not meant to be propaganda, of course. Yeah. But it's about managing expectations, obviously. How to do it? This is what we want to discuss here. How to do it, because there are several initiatives. For example, in US, our colleague of PAVE US that started 6 years ago already with this mission to educate and promote or advocate, I would say, for the technology and for this new mobility system. They started with some campaigns, so engaging with the citizens. For example, where there are festivals, where all the citizens are going. They partnered with some industries providing, there was a nice one in Texas where they invited trucks providers, with the new technology provider like Aurora and so on, to show the trucks to the people that were participating in this festival. So this is an example, or engaging with the local authorities, so to organize local events with the communities. You invite them to talk and discuss about this new way of mobility. and to engage with the local politicians, and where it is possible to show the technology, of course, because this is an important way to, but it's not about propaganda, it's about managing expectation, and yes, advocating for this new type of technology, because this is the reason why we are here. I didn't introduce that, but the beliefs, so we start with some beliefs, and I think this is shared by the European Commission, and they are that this technology can improve road safety, can improve the overall mobility system, can improve accessibility. So these are the, can address the driver shortage, and also be a booster for economic growth in Europe. So these are all principles or beliefs that are our starting point for advocating about the technology, not, but the potential benefit, I would say potential benefit, which we still have to demonstrate it.
Yeah, I think if I can add to that, Guido, indeed the driver shortage is one of the problems and the aging of drivers. So I think this is a challenge indeed to overcome these. We expect that by 2030, 2035, there will be the present generation of traditional truck drivers will phase out. So that is in itself a challenge that we can address here, and not only the policymakers but also other stakeholders in the area. So that is the things that we can deal with in CCAM.
Also, like maybe to extend the question as well to Nina, because I think a lot as well is about the communication from the media. For example, when incidents happen and so on, I think many people maybe have a fear just from what they hear in the news. And I think, Nina, you mentioned about these communication aspects, and in particular in case of incidents. So are there proper ways of communicating that? Actually, that could be interesting.
Yes, actually, in our the second scenario that we tested in our survey. So, as a citizen, you would I will briefly describe the scenario. But as a citizen, you would rent a car that would be an AV. You would be using this AV in the street of Rome, and without apparent reason, without any context, the car you are in would stop. And behind you, there is a car that nearly hits you. And this type of incident nearly caused an accident, and this really generated a lot of emotional and negative reactions. So a lot, I would say, to go briefly, a lot of anxiety and fear. And in this type of communication, in this type of incident, what we saw, because in the scenario, after the incident, people were receiving a reporting that would describe what happened and why it happened, and that would be sent to the manufacturer, to the car manufacturer. And what we saw was that people that referred in their answer to this reporting tend to have a more positive attitude, despite the fact that they were in an incident. So that highlights the role of communication in this type of incident. That's the first thing. And another signal that we got from our study was that people, they actually liked the fact that this reporting would be sent to the manufacturer. And that allows us today to say that it's also important that this communication is bilateral. So it means that it should be, for example, in the type of reporting, it should be the user should have the possibility to send the reporting, but also to give back answers. And to extend that, it could be also compared to what we have currently for Lyft. I would say an urgency center that you could call. We have a lot of things to imagine in terms of communication, but it's important that this communication is not in top-down, but really bilateral, so that we can also, as user, have some power and be able to communicate in both ways.
So in both ways, and transparency, I understand as well. So I think there was first question in the back. I don't remember who's, and then will be who was first in the back. Yeah, maybe Clémentine.
Yes, thanks. Clémentine Barbier from Keolis, so public transport operator. We have been conducting level 4 services, and I think when you do level 4 instead of level 3, then you have to assess also not only the safety, but the security inside the vehicle. Is it the kind of surveys that you have conducted also, or not yet?
I can take this, but not for the survey. I mean, I agree with you that this is one of the KPI to be considered as important. And before then considering it in a survey, I would consider it relevant in the validation, in the assessment of the solution when you organize a pilot. Make sure that you, of course, you have needs that are requirements that are associated to security, but also that you have this as a proper KPI with proper objectives and KPIs, and so you can prove it. So, please.
Well, yes. So when we talk about safety, it was so. In our survey, we asked people what they felt about automated vehicles, and the more basically when they shared their answer with us, they mentioned a lot the topic of safety. So it means safety for them, but also safety for the others. So in the end, when people talk about safety, the more they really refer to that, they don't always think about themselves, but also about the other road users. So this is how we understand the safety in that sense. And yes, and what we saw was that safety was really a concern for citizens, and that it really impacts their attitude toward this technology.
Yes, so I very much agree that the experience is important. Evie Rombouts from VUB Brussels. So we've seen also in user surveys, the experience is important, but more and more we notice that with these surveys that we conduct connected to pilots that are quite immature, that people have a lot of actually, they start rejecting the service in the sense because it's immature, it has a lot of hard breakings. And so I feel that, you mentioned the demonstrations that happen for PAVE, US, for example. I think they have a lot, their job is a lot easier than PAVE Europe because, I mean, I think the technology is what is holding us back a lot here. And I see you nod, so I think you agree in that. So I feel that we should invest more in, let's say, more mature technology first, or having pilots with that more mature technology and have people actually have exposure with that in order to then improve their acceptance levels as well.
Yes, if I can comment. It's interesting what you say, because also in behavioral science, we have this concept that is called mere exposure effect, that would say that you are more favorable to something that you're used to, that you are, more exposed. So I don't know, I don't think he's here, but there is also John McSweeney from UITB that participated in the SHOW project. And in this SHOW project, you have shuttles that are in cities. And what John was saying is that the elder people what we identify is that elderly people are more reluctant to this technology, but when they got exposed to it, when they are using it, it really helps them to have a better attitude and better understanding of how to use it and how it can be convenient for them.
I'm working in that field since 2016, so 9 years. And in my view, it's not a question, it's a fact. We're not that more far than in 2016. We're a group of believers, and we know that's the bubble we are inside because we know little bit about it, but the rest of the world has no clue about it. So now we had made a next step within Switzerland, and we have the legislation in place. Well, we had a short wave of media. Whew, that's finished. We had a lot of more pilots to show what's going on, and these pilots are extremely important
to show what the capacities of these technique is. But these pilots are in special surroundings. So 20 kilometers far away, nothing more. And the aspect of, and I fully agree that the information and communication is the most important aspect, is to be honest. To be honest, and we are talking almost every time about we believe that will be good. And that's as a governmental organization, it's our responsibility, and for the other ones as well, to say, okay, there are a lot of risks in there. Yeah? And we don't believe to Tesla they're driving automated because that's marketing. So it's not propaganda, it has to be honest. And we should be able to say it could go wrong, firstly, that's our part, and the technique should be really good. And as long as it is not good, the main word is acceptance. If the service is not good, nobody would use it. And it's not smooth or whatever it is, for what purpose it is. It has to be like that. And we are not that far. No, we are far away from that for a good use. So it's quite a mission impossible at the moment for us to talk about, well, it could be really nice. But if it's not,
any answer to that? I think we can only agree.
Well, to comment on that, indeed, one of the partners in CCAM-ERAS is also the SAM, the Swiss Association of Automated Mobility, and they have some quite nice use cases that they developed, and they showed that that was convenient for everybody, as well for the worker, as well for the company. One of them was the bus depot system, where buses are. So drivers do not need to wait any longer in front of the depot in order to give off their bus. It has all been automated, and the next day it is, as I understood it, it will be ready again. So that's where you gain trust, and we are happy with these use cases that we and more than we even include in the study. But Switzerland is indeed giving us quite some nice use case on this, which they build on trust, I think.
I fully agree, and what we can say that due to our legislation now, it's the responsibility of the cantons, which is the federal level, the lower level, to in the end to license these vehicles once they are available. Well, even the cantons don't have a big idea about it. They are not prepared for that. So it's really a challenging work for all of us to be. I said it again, to be transparent and to don't make any propaganda nor marketing. To say where we are, where we want to go, what we do expect, and we try the very best to make it really good for the society. But my worst idea is nobody is moving anymore because the food is brought to my computer where I work. It's good to move sometimes, huh? It's good to move sometimes.
Okay, we can just take a last question because we'll have to finish. Oh, yeah, sorry, you were first, yes, indeed. 2 quick questions, hopefully.
Is it working? Yes, okay. I just would like to continue on the same comment a bit that you made before, it's related. So I'm Louison Dubois, sorry, I didn't present myself. I have quite long-standing experience with acceptance. I've made many studies on new technologies in general. And when I was using, acceptance model or perspective theories to make my research, I always felt kind of discomfort because when you make focus group, when you talk with people, you quickly understand that acceptance is actually maybe not that related to the technology. So it's not about using the technology, but it's about a context in their mobility. And very quickly I could understand that some people, they would not use the technology simply because it will not be useful. So it will be like, okay, if you put a bus a new, if automated vehicle is a bus that is at 15 minutes away from me, I will still use my car. Or maybe they will say, or another example could be, if the service is coming to my door, but tomorrow what you propose to me is to have less space, while my city was promising to me to make my space for my kids to play in the street, to remove the cars. But what we propose is the same system, or maybe worsening it. What does that mean? And so before, some of you, the two here, you were talking about context. But I think that when we talk about context, I'm not sure to understand what do you mean, because it depends on the context. Maybe you speak about the geography, but I think it's also losing our power in designing. And I think that what we should look at is what needs are we really covering? And we should ask to people, what are the real needs that you need for your mobility, but also for your everyday life? How you want to live the city or the countryside, but more the city, I guess, in general, because it will be the first case, I guess. But I think those questions should be asked. And I wanted to ask to you, when you talk about context, are you taking this into consideration? Thank you.
Yes. The short question is yes. Context for me is something very, very broad. That is of course, the environment, but also the cultural environment, but also the context of usage of a certain solution, because I can use it for leisure, and I have certain levels of acceptance or certain requirements, certain barriers that I can apply, or I use the same technology for job. Maybe I accept to use a cheaper service when I'm traveling on my own, and I will not accept it when I travel for business. No? So context means all of this, including the fact that is depending on personal factors of the same person. So can also change in the life of the same person. We can discover that something that was acceptable yesterday is no more acceptable today. It's not a matter of just say is acceptable or is not acceptable. It's a matter of understanding what are the criteria behind this acceptance and how they combine and how they create for us, for the analysis, I would say personas or clusters of prospective users, stakeholders, citizens, whatever you want, that we can consider when we design the solution. So as an unicum, I don't know if I answer. Is that okay with you? Thank you.
Interesting. So what's your main question? Is to
how is Europe moving faster compared to other regions? And as European citizens experience autonomy in these other countries and bring their experiences back, will they be pushing for faster adoption?
But actually, you can experience some of these quite advanced technologies also here. But yeah, I think.
Indeed.
Any other quick comment on how experience of technology and then?
Well, my opinion is that if we want to boost the market in Europe and also acceptance, why not having, technology coming from other regions that could help also the European industries then to prepare for the market and further develop. So I would say yes to your question. It would help a lot user acceptance and also boosting the European market. But this is my opinion.
I think indeed from what we heard, it's about really experiencing mature technology, something that works. That's the only way to really convince you in the end. So, okay, so I'm sorry, so we will not have time as well to see the results, but what I propose is that I will include the results in the presentations that we will upload either this evening or already tomorrow to the website. So you will have access to that. So thank you very much. I think we could go on for other contributions. Thank you to the panelists.